Hi guys, how you doing? Mike Profumo here. Today's video we're going to talk about wake baits. The title of our video is going to be Operation Choke Point: How to Maximize the Big Bass Potential of Wake Baits. Thanks for tuning in. Talking about fishing wake baits, there's typically two ways to fish them. A lot of people will start off just fishing, casting to open water, waking the baits in, and people do catch fish that way, but I feel like it's not the best way to catch the biggest fish in your lake. We want to focus today on choke points, defining what that is, okay, and how to find them and use them when fishing. So for me, a choke point is a change in depth, a point where the fish can pin the bait. There's not a lot of water, so a bigger fish that's not as fast as a smaller fish can pin that bait and it cannot get away from them. Okay, so remember, big bass are big for a reason. They're not spending a lot of energy chasing fish. They're going to ambush feed, or they're going to push fish into points where the fish can't get away. So if we're talking, we're talking double-digit bass here, or the biggest bass in your lake, or really big stripers. So whatever the schoolie size in your lake is, we're talking about the class above that doesn't associate and stay in those schools. So those big bass, they don't want to expend energy. They want to be able to maximize their feeding potential and not have to chase bait down. Because number one, they're not going to be as fast as a smaller fish, so they're going to lose that battle. Okay, number two, they don't want to burn the energy. They want to be able to stay big and be successful with their hunting skills. Okay, so when we're talking choke points, there's two main types of choke points. We have vertical choke points, which are going to be comprised of walls, dams, rock walls, thick weed ledges, docks, and there's several other types. Feel free to comment and add any other types you might think. When we're talking about fishing these, we're typically talking about casting parallel. If you look right here, we have a buoy line. So a buoy line is also, I would give as an example of a vertical wall. So casting along a buoy line is a great way to get bit. So we're not going to talk a lot about the vertical walls, the vertical choke points today. We're going to focus primarily on the horizontal choke points, because I feel like there's more horizontal choke points in your lakes, and there's a lot of different types. So being able to find what those are and knowing what conditions the fish are using them to feed is what's going to lead to your success. So some examples of our horizontal choke points are going to be points, rocks, rock piles, submerged weeds, submerged trees, pretty much anything where the water is here and then there is a change of depth. So it can be a ledge, an underwater ledge. There's a lot of different features that we're looking for this. Understanding where to set your boat, or for shore fishing, this is excellent, because when you position yourself and cast to the right spot, it's going to lead to your most success. So when we're talking about the horizontal choke points, there's typically two types of feeders that are going to set up and feed in those situations. We have active feeders that are following baits and chasing baits. They're going to push them into those choke points where the bait can't get away, where they can skinny water and they can eat it. Okay, and then the other type is going to be an ambush feeder. I feel like the ambush feeders are typically going to be your bigger fish, your bigger largemouth. We're talking double digits and teeners, and then the bigger stripers in your body of water, whether it's a river, lake. Your bigger fish are going to lay ambush and attack a bait that can't see them. All right, so we got a couple diagrams we're going to take a look at and try to explain what these choke points look like. Just remember, not every lake's the same, not every choke point's the same. You got to understand the conditions that are going to push those fish onto feeding them. Whether it's the middle of the day, the brightest part of the day, and the wind kicks up, that would be one thing that I'm looking for. And then prefrontal conditions is always one of my favorites. But you just got to kind of experiment and find what is working at that spot. So start locating those spots on your lake, figuring out where they are, and then trying them different times of the day, different conditions, and you'll start to find out what times those fish are setting up to feed on those points, and which points are working and which points aren't. Sometimes there's points I don't really spend a lot of time fishing them because I know that these other points are producing. I'll still try them from time to time, but typically the points that are working are the ones that you're going to build that confidence in and find those fish on. So here we go. We're going to take a look at these diagrams right here. So if you have any questions on these, or if you have any comments to add, or different types that you've been successful with, feel free to add in the comments down below as well. Thank you. Okay, so here we're looking at a choke point. So I've got boat positioning, or if you're fishing from the shore, we're casting into the wind. So the wind is blowing back this way, and then aiming points where I'd be casting. Okay, and I'll probably start off with the closest point here, and then cast out to the deeper water spots. But the choke point right here you see is this change in depth. So we have the shoreline, okay, and we have this point that we're on here, main lake point or secondary point, doesn't even matter. Okay, but we have a change of depth, and we're looking for like a 2-foot change. So we might be casting out into 20 feet, 15 feet, 30 feet. And then this point usually makes some sort of a shelf, whether it's 2 feet deep or 10 feet deep. So we're coming from 20 to 10 feet. We're looking for a change in depth along this point, a drastic change where it goes immediately, jumps up like 2 feet. So those fish either sitting here if it's deeper, or they're following the bait in from over here or from deeper water, and then when that bait gets to the choke point, that's where your bite is going to come, right there. Okay, so if the wind was blowing the other way, we'd put the boat on the other side and we'd be casting into the wind. Is typically going to be your best. Casting with the wind, my experience, is just not as good. We want the wind in our face, and those fish are going to follow that bait as it's tracking that direction. Okay, the other types of choke points that we're looking for are going to be submerged boulders or weed clumps that are underwater, submerged trees. So if we're looking at the shore here, and again, we want the wind blowing this way. We want to cast into the wind. So if I'm positioning my boat, I'm going to be putting it tight to shore right here, or if I'm fishing from the shore, and this is another reason why fishing wake baits is such a great tool for shore anglers, because you can fish through structure with very low risk of snagging your baits. So we're casting over the structure, reeling it back over, and we're going to either have fish hiding inside the structure, which again, for big bass and big stripers, are going to hold your biggest fish. So a tree I can cast out and bring it into the tree, and when I have a hard structure like a tree, I typically like to give the bait a tap and make it do a directional change with the bill, kind of walking it, so to speak, or casting over this way and reeling it back this way. So again, we want the direction of the wind is important. If I'm fishing stripers, I'm fishing heavy line, 30, 40 pound test, lockdown drag, because you are going to lose that bait in the tree. The bigger stripers, the bigger largemouth, are typically sitting in these while the smaller fish are actively feeding and chasing bait to them, and they sit there, and you bring that bait on top of it, and you are going to be surprised at what you catch, especially in dark, overcast, windy conditions or nighttime conditions. Those bigger fish tend to want to sit in those trees and ambush and not expend energy chasing around after fish. I mean, it's just, they're not going to win because the smaller fish are faster. They got more energy. Those big fish are big for a reason. They want to expend the least amount of energy. So they're going to ambush and wait for other fish to push them, or leery bait fish to just swim by. The wind pushing it, other fish pushing it, are typically what I've experienced. Okay, talking about the different types of wake baits, there's two primary categories. So we have the lipless style, fished a little bit differently, and that basically two ways to fish these baits. One is in calm conditions, slow, steady. The slower the better sometimes. And then the other way is to fish them fast, moderate to fast speed, or burning them, and then pausing them and getting those directional changes by doing that. So if you have really active fish, chasing trout, chasing bait, that's a good way to do it. And then the wake baits, build baits. Okay, I personally prefer two-piece, single jointed wakes, but there are several different versions. 3-piece, 4-piece, all kinds of stuff going around these days, but I feel like day in and day out, the 2-piece baits with the single joint are the ticket, whether it's a rat, bluegill profile, the good old slammer, or more modern baits that have different purposes. We're going to show some video clips here of some of these baits and what they do. All right, thanks for tuning in. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in today. I hope this helps you with your big bass journey, helps put some of those bigger fish in the boats, okay, and on the shore if you're fishing from the shore. Really appreciate the support. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to my channel here. And I want to give a quick shout out to my buddy Ricky Boho, my other buddy Travis Averill. They've been with me through this whole game since I started making and selling baits, 10, 15 years ago. They've been here helping me out and supporting me along the way. So thanks, guys, and good luck, and God bless.